This is a Danger Entertainment podcast. DangerEntertainment.net. Danger Entertainment Podcast Network.
My life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. My life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. Brian's trying to mess me up by mentioning other podcasts, so I forget the name of this one. But I can never forget you folks.
I would like your proof. Henno, you stay out of this, because I know you recorded that.
Well, welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. My name's Jen. I am your hostess for the evening. As you well know, we have with us Brian and Henno tonight. Full house. Woohoo!
Yay.
Woo. Go team.
The crowd rejoices.
Yay.
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 Anywho, so who wants to start us
Genevieve.
off this week? What? I know.
We have, without rules, we are no type of society. You can't just willy-nilly throw the rules out. Especially not when it doesn't affect you or I.
That's funny.
We have the power right now. Henno can't outvote us.
It's true.
I was trying to give him the opportunity to, to self-elect, but
Nah.
to be the tribute, shall we
Yes.
say?
To volunteer as tribute from
Yep.
whatever one of those.
Yes.
I can't think of the movies now.
Yes.
The Dumb Games.
The Hunger Games. There you go. Yeah.
The Dumber Games.
Sure.
That too.
Anyway,
That's been a
That
while
too.
since.
yeah. So, Henno, how's the last 6 months been?
I know exactly. Well, we were like 3 weeks between the last episode.
Yeah.
Which is a little weird.
I was thinking that too. Like the 1 week we didn't record, and then later that week I was like, "Were we supposed to record this week?" I'm like,
yeah, it
I
was
feel
supposed
like
to be last week.
Like I feel like we're on the wrong. Like we've skipped a week here somewhere. So
It did feel extra long.
Yeah.
And I do apologize for that, folks, because
I don't.
life is
don't
life
apologize.
Yeah. No.
Well, I know that they wait on our show with bated breath
Oh, yeah,
until it launches.
Sure.
What kind of bait are they using?
So, yeah, I don't know. We can
Because
ask
I don't
Jeannie.
necessarily want to know.
Yeah.
We can ask Jeannie. I know she's one of our loyal listeners.
Mhm.
It's true.
Yeah.
True, she
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
And thank you, Jeannie, for always sharing
Yes.
on Twitter
Agreed.
that
Yes.
you're listening.
Mhm.
Yes,
It's very much appreciated.
it very much is.
And I want to welcome a new listener who's been checking out some of our back episodes, and that's Carmelita.
Oh, nice.
Hi,
Welcome aboard.
Carmelita.
Hi, Carmelita. Thank you for listening.
Excellent.
I actually got to meet Carmelita when I was in the Bay Area, which was really awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Very
so
cool.
Carmelita joins us on Moving the Needle podcast on occasion, and it just made it even funnier because I still haven't met Roy and Sean. Actually, nor Stephanie either, which is
That's funny.
And I did. How many years was Stephanie on Gotham
Yeah.
Lights?
Yeah.
But every single time I was in a place where I could meet her, she was like out of town or went somewhere else or whatever it was. So there's still, a few people that I have, I still have plenty of country to travel and meet other podcasters.
Yeah. But all that matters, you've met us, so
that's all. It's true.
You met the important ones, because
Yeah, I've been to Michigan, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. And Ohio. Yeah.
Naturally, Michigan's the Mecca.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. It was its own podcast tour.
Yeah,
which was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was. There's quite a few of us not that far from one another, and a good group of us got together for more just to be like friendly. It had really had nothing to do with podcasting.
Yeah, the Chicago trip. Yeah.
So yeah,
that was also a lot of fun. Yeah, I think those are my two favorites. Was the Chicago
speaking of
meetup.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, speaking of the Chicago meetup, it like popped up in my like memories thing the other day that it's been 6 years or 7 years, and I was like, wow, it's been that long since we did that. It's like, dang, yeah.
Yeah, that and the Portland one that we did too. Those were really, really fun.
Right.
So speaking of meeting large groups of people, my trip back to California was not that, and it was awesome. And I didn't feel bad about it at all. I reached out to people. It's funny. Something dawned on me. I have a couple of friends that I always have a hard time getting together with at this time of year. And I called one on the phone, and she kind of explained, it's fiscal year and stuff. And I was like, oh, this makes sense now. Because my other friend works in a semi-government type of job, also as a financial controller, and it's like, oh, okay, it's always like, this is my really busy week of the year. It's like, all right, this is why we've never managed to get together in March, but it worked out great because I really wanted to spend time with my friend Brendan, and be at home and help my mom around the house. Which the one thing we went there to go do, we didn't accomplish, which is really funny because he brought a bunch of tools down from Sacramento to do this work, and in the end we needed a couple other tools that he didn't have, and it was like, all right, well, that didn't work out. I still told my mom, I said, you know what, I'll come back later in the summer, I'll get this finished up. But there was other things that, like, it just happened to be that she had a sewer line leak, and then a toilet was leaking, and all these other things. So we still got to do some stuff, and then Brendan and I stayed up till wee hours of the morning playing Dungeons and Dragons, which we hadn't done in, like, I think it had been 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, was the last time we got together and played this campaign we started. So.
Oh, you picked up an old campaign?
Oh yeah, well, we started it in 2013.
Wow.
We did it for 2 years, and then we hadn't touched it since then.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
And it was funny trying to remember where we were, what we were doing, and yeah.
Yeah.
What was great is a memory popped up also on Facebook that had a photo, and it had a map on it in the background, plus, with all my dice and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's what we should do, is just take photos at the end of every session.
That's very smart. Yeah.
Right. The notebooks that are open, what's on that page, what's on your character sheet, what's it look like, where on the map you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely something you should have done. But I did that and had a couple of rehearsals for the gig, which was really a blast. There's this studio that we went to near Oakland, and we played during the day. It's like a whole block, like where you have warehouses, and it was this full city block, and it was all these little rooms, and every room was completely filled with instruments and music stands and amplifiers. You could pretty much just walk in there with nothing and play.
Oh, that's wild. I was thinking that it was like rented out by other bands or something is what you were meaning. Like they had a bunch of studio spaces, Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Though. Okay.
They were all for everyone to use, and it wasn't any high end stuff, but you could get together and have a good time and play. And they had, everything, microphones and cables and guitar cables, and it was really neat. And then the people that are part of it, I guess, I'm sure they run it as a nonprofit, so they try to do it's got a real strong educational kind of foundation to it. So the drummer that we played with, he was actually going to be doing a performance with some of the other, with some of the kids, and it was kind of like a part of his I don't know if it's a membership or whatever it is, however they do it. It's really neat, and the pricing was reasonable, and so that was really good. And we had a couple of really good rehearsals, and it was funny on the way that morning before I was going to go to the first rehearsal, I was so freaked out. I was just really nervous, and Brendan and I are sitting, in the chairs in the living room enjoying, mom's fresh made whatever zucchini bread, and she's making us bowls of fruit and sitting there going, God, I love this bed and breakfast. And he said, would you quit worrying? You're going to probably be more prepared than anybody is even there. You're going to show up and they're not even going to have their stuff together. And I stopped and I'm like, wow, you know what? You're probably right. Because I've always been like that. He's like, you have gone out of your way to try to be as prepared as possible. And if you feel like you're lacking in any way, shape, or form, it'll still be more than everyone else. And he was right. Like, this is why we've been friends since we've been, whatever it was, freshmen in high school.
Yeah, right.
So that was really great. And like I said, I just limited the amount of people that I met. I met a couple friends, those that I couldn't. I wrote a letter or, made a phone call or something. And it was nice to just not be so stressed with driving everywhere to see people.
Yeah.
And then we had the ski trip and it was awesome. I was doing a lot of work during the day. I didn't ski, but Friday night we did a combo. I played like some solo. We had Matti come up, one of the guys that played on Saturday, and we did some songs together. And then they did a bunch of Estonian sing-alongs, which was really great. Had a really good time. And then the best was Saturday night. It was just so much fun. We had a good turnout for 60th. It was great. They made these little pins that said Estonian Ski Club established 1960-ish, because nobody exactly knows when the first one was.
Right.
So we kept saying it was the 60-ish anniversary. But we had a great dinner at the day lodge and got the band fired up. And hey, we had mess ups and this kind of stuff, but the sound was great. Brought hauling all my gear all the way over there was great. And the other thing that I did differently this time is I spent a little bit of extra money and got hotel rooms and kind of took my time going home and coming back.
Oh, so you drove obviously because of all the gear
and
stuff, right?
All the gear, exactly, yeah. And it ended up being something that I need to do more in the future because I was less fatigued when I got there and more kind of ready to enjoy myself. And same thing on the way home. I ended up I'd booked a room in Winnemucca because I was going to go to Boise, and I got there like 4:30, and I was like, oh, this is lame. I'm going to be here all night long in this hotel room. Well, I started getting a little tired by around 4:00, and I'm like, oh, this is actually a good thing. And went and got some food, and when I got up the next morning early, I was less road weary from doing these long stints. So it was something I just need to remember that if I'm taking time off, take time off, enjoy it. Don't rush it. And here's the thing, it's like all the stuff we talk about on here. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Right.
And that's what I did. And even though I'm by myself and I'm in a hotel room doing whatever, I was, one night I was rehearsing, just playing bass. The other night I just went to a casino and, gambled a little and, I had a nice dinner and went back to the room. But it was very much me time. And I liked it. The whole trip was kind of like that. And I ended up, like, from a musical standpoint, I really grew in a lot of ways because that's the first time I've ever. So I did basically 2 hours of music there was three songs that I didn't sing. So I sang about 17 or 18 songs. And
now you're meaning like saying like lead, right? Not just like harmonies or something. Okay.
I'm the lead singer. I'm the front man carrying, and I've never done that on a bass I haven't done it a whole lot on guitar either, but I've never done it playing bass, which is very different. than playing guitar. So there was a lot of growth there. I got a chance to learn a lot, and there's also just personal growth there too about getting out of my comfort zone and putting myself out there and saying, okay, can I do this? And it was really, really fun. And then since then, just been, it's going from winter into spring, and
how's work going?
I'm laughing really quick because like last night I got a thing on my phone saying like snow chance in the area. It was 70 today, and they're saying it's going to be like drop 30 degrees by tonight. So
that's
yeah.
we have the same thing. Like I pulled the air conditioner out and brought it into the house, and then the next day I was turning the heat back up.
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
But at least it's like work right now is very rewarding, but there's just so much to do. And in a lot of ways, it just makes it easy. It's like picking up a dart and just throwing it at the wall. Like there's the to-do list, hit one. It won't matter. There's nothing that's not a waste. Nothing is a waste of time. know, it may not be the most urgent priority that day, but it's still not a waste of time.
Right. Yeah, because I would think this time of year you guys got a lot of like prep stuff probably for spring and summer, right?
Oh yeah,
or like clean up from the winter and that kind of stuff.
Well, that's exactly it. And then we have, and now all the contractors are rolling in because they're ready to get started, and all that. And then the owners are going to start showing up, and so they have their own little pet projects and things that they want to do. But everything's going great. The new GM is working out great.
Awesome.
I was gone for a week. Then Omar was gone for a week, and it's great that we can all take time off, and we don't feel overwhelmed by it, or there's no resentment about it. It's like, go have some time off. We got it. It just feels so good to not have this be a place you dread to go.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's just such a miracle. Yeah, and then I did it when I came back. I did a gig within a few days, and then now we're gonna. I really want to. I had to get taxes done, so I got all that done, and now it's get back to our album and get this thing finished. And then something happened this weekend. Was I haven't felt like writing a lot of music, like not consciously doing it, let's just say, but I've felt that just that connection, real strong connection to my instrument, and the story, Taylor Hawkins, his death from the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
It's Dave Grohl's a huge influence on me on songwriting, and most of that band's career, it's been Taylor behind the drums, but it's like if Taylor plays like Dave, and it's the feel of that band.
Yeah. And
I've seen them, and then just following the band, just his musical spirit, and what they've done as musicians. It's not easy when to be a musician in a band where somebody has such a strong vision.
Yeah.
And you yourself have a lot of ideas, but you're kind of told to like, well, you just do your part, right? And that's something that I've always I'm better in a role of kind of like a utility player and supporting somebody, and I don't mind doing it, but that doesn't mean I still don't have my own things that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it just means you just need to kind of find your own way of expressing yourself, and so like this weekend, I was playing, of all things, I was playing Indigo Girls songs like I was playing the Foo Fighters. I don't know why. I just put the Indigo Girls on iTunes, and I was like, this song would sound really great. Like, how would Dave Grohl play this song? And it inspired me to write a song. And every night I came home from work, no video games, boom, pick up the guitar, work on it. And so I've roughed out all the music last night. It is so much. I mean, it's like, okay, hello Foo Fighters, but it's what I wanted. I wanted it to be inspired by that, and it feels so good. But what it did is I realized, because I was like, okay, I'm going to bring this into the band. And I went, you know what? If I bring this into the band, it's going to become something that's not how it feels right now.
Yeah.
And I started all of a sudden listing off a bunch of songs, and I'm like, wait a minute. I think I have enough songs now to do my own album.
Oh,
nice.
Okay.
And I have enough that they're consistent.
Yeah.
And that there'll be a flow from one song into the next.
Right.
And so I reached out to Danae, who I was the singer in Cake Based Jane, and she's just great. I sent her. She's asked a couple times, like, hey, if you ever want to get together, and her kids have gotten older now, and I was like, here's a good opportunity. I said, are you still writing lyrics? Because I got this song, and lyrics and melodies aren't my strong point.
Yeah.
I can do them, but they'll be better with interaction. And she was super into it, and that made me excited. And so,
and what a great excuse to also reconnect.
That's it,
and have some fun with a friend / peer. That's very cool.
And somebody I haven't played with in
right.
whatever it's been now, 8 years.
Yeah.
9. Yeah, that's how old our kids are, I guess, 8 or 9 years old. So that felt really good, and it also just felt good to actually like something that I wrote. Like, wow, I like this, and from an artist standpoint, and to not feel like I don't care what anybody else thinks about it. I like it, and so that's where I want to be with music.
Yeah.
So that was really good, and plus it allowed me to. There's a theme. The whole Ukrainian thing has been on my mind. More not about the stories of people that are helping others.
Yes.
And that's what kind of tied in with Taylor Hawkins' death, is because so many people just were expressing how, how this was a good dude.
Yeah, like not just I mean, obviously they're a huge rock band and have been for years, so obviously there's going to be a lot of fans going, man, this rips at my heart kind of stuff. But then you see all the other musicians and all that stuff like on Twitter, and they're all like, here's a story where he was just an awesome dude to me, always positive, always looking to raise up others. And it always is a shame when you see that it looks like addiction got a hold of him as well. And it's always such a shame when you see just how much any of this stuff doesn't care about the people. Like addiction doesn't care who you are. If you're a rock drummer in one of the biggest bands in the world, it doesn't care. It can still take you down. And we've talked about that and depression and different stuff on here, to where it literally is an everyday fight, and one day you don't win and it's over. And it's very sad. Not and just that we're losing a musician, but, a very influential guy and seemingly a really nice guy too. It's sad. And
I relate that to what's going on in, it's just with war in general, where people have lives and now their lives are gone.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make the best of it. And the same thing with this is when especially when there are drugs or alcohol involved, it tends to take people in a way where it's shocking to everybody. Well, maybe they're not surprised, but it's still shocking because nobody expects it.
Yeah, for sure.
And because Keith Richards.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
So I hope that I can get some lyrics that tie into that, because that's how I'm feeling right now, is to talk about the just not talk about the darkness, but talk about where people find lightness in the dark, and how people, that even though things may be lost, there's that there's opportunity, and this is growth out of opportunity to grow, opportunity to have spiritual growth as well as personal and other growth through adversity. And then that's sometimes all we can do with situations that we don't understand.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping the theme's going to be for that. And again, it's going to tie in, like all the most of the songs that I have in mind are all going to be, somewhere around that kind of a theme again, or even with the show. So I still plan on the quote unquote band is going to be called The Crazy Life, for sure. I'm still going with that because I think it's great. I just wish that person that has the crazylife.com would just let it go because they're not doing anything with it.
I know, it kills you, right? Like it's similar to like the Twitter handle for Salty Language. Like the guy who had it when we started Salty Language, 11 years ago, got suspended then. He was suspended. Yeah. I couldn't get the name because of that. It's still a suspended account. They've never purged the account to where I could take over that name.
I do believe, don't I have the crazylife.com?
No. Somebody
I don't think so.
owns the crazylife.com. Yeah, and like I said, they don't do anything with it. They renew it every year just in time. They usually wait till the last minute and then they renew it. Even though I have their email. When you look it up, you can find their email. So I could reach out to them and ask them and said how much you want for it.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
But everything else is available. All right. The .orgs, the .
Yeah, you can work around it for sure. Yeah.
There's so many different opportunities.
Crazy Life Band, Crazy Life whatever, I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All that stuff. So.
Yep. That's why it's like, I wish I wouldn't have gone with Salty _language. I wish I would have found a better workaround because the underscore is so annoying. But now we've had it for so long that it's like, even if the other was available, it's like, if Salty Language was available, I would take it. But anything else almost feels like, I mean, I could switch it to like Salty Language Pod or something like that, or Salty Pod or what, there's other stuff that was available, but it's just, we've been using it so long now,
For sure.
So that's what I got.
All right,
awesome. Oh. Brian, do you want to go next? Do you want me to go?
I'll go. That's fine.
Excuse me.
I went and saw my my social worker this past week, which is, I didn't realize it's been December since I've talked with her or my therapist.
Wow.
So, wow. Yeah, and so I had a little, I had a chat with her about, all the stuff that's gone on since December, and, so basically it was mostly just a catch-up thing, and, we talked a little bit about whatever, but it's, and I didn't know through the program that I'm through with her, I guess the psychiatrist that was working with me has moved on to, I forgot where, he's working for the VA now. So he moved on to a different post. So there's a different psychiatrist, and which is, no big deal at the moment. I don't know this guy's style or his profile when it comes to how he treats what I'm doing. And also now next week I go to therapy finally again. And, because the social worker even looked to see if there was a closer appointment, and there wasn't. So I was like, dang it, but so I'll finally get to do that. I'll finally get to find out about the ADHD evaluation, and then, see where all that goes. So I'm going to do that first, because the tendency is going to be, let's catch up. And I'm going to be like, nope, let's handle this first. Because I can always schedule another appointment to finish the catch up, but I want to get this going because I've already been waiting on this for months, so it's like, let's do this and, whatever. So it's going to be one of those few times I'm actually going to walk into therapy and be like, this is how it's going to go,
Right.
Great.
But from that point, then it's okay. Just kind of see where, the talk takes us. But, it's like, I really can feel it, that I haven't gone in months now. It's really, it just, like I've talked before, just the catharsis from going and having that hour to just purge, and just talk and whatever, and then be able to come back and, it's, but one thing I've done in the meantime, because I'm like, I was thinking about, with my stuff about, with art and stuff, I keep wanting to do art, but I still can't seem to start it, which has been a problem for me for years. Starting things has not been a great thing of mine. I'll put, even when I was in school, I put it off until, the night before and then turn in subpar work, basically. And, I actually was reading a piece on, I forgot what it's called. Let me see if I can pull it up really quick. If not, I'll move on. I had it right there. Dang it. The link disappeared. It's from a website called Wait But Why. And they had a little 2-part thing on procrastination and why we procrastinate and stuff. And the beautiful part is I don't think the people involved are psychiatrists or anything. They're people who deal with this, but it was done in a funny way. Like the guy describes how you're a decision maker and that there's this like instant gratification monkey that keeps trying to like, let's have fun. And you're like, no, I got to do this. And it's like, but we could do this instead. And eventually you just end up letting the monkey take over, which is a terrible idea, until basically down the road, the panic monster enters, which is the only thing that scares off the monkey.
This is great.
And,
I love it.
And there's just crude illustrations that go with it and stuff. And they actually made plushes of the monkey and the panic monster. So I'll have a link to that in the show notes if anyone else wants to go. And they have other stuff that they've written articles about and whatnot too. So I haven't had a chance to read anything else yet, but those were enjoyable and very relatable in that is exactly what I do when it comes to procrastination though is, and they even mentioned that, you know, some traps you can fall into end up being like, how you'll make a to-do list. And a lot of times people will say, just get the easy stuff out of the way. And it's like, yes, but by doing that, you're using that as a way to avoid certain tasks on your list. And I was like, oh, that's so true, you know? So anyways, all that aside, I went back and I jumped on, DeviantArt, which was a site that I used to be way more active in years ago. And I started looking at the site and, you know, kind of like, well, maybe, you know, getting back into, maybe there's some of the artists I used to talk with and whatever. And it's like, wow, I looked at, like, when you follow someone, anything they upload kind of shows up. They call them deviations. And I'm like, there's going to be a million of these to go through. I'll probably just delete them all and start over. There wasn't as many as I thought, which tells me the site's not used as much as it used to be, which doesn't surprise me because Instagram. But looking through posts and stuff and, you know, seeing some art stuff, it's one of those where you feel inspired, but not enough to do anything. So, but I thought that maybe kind of putting myself a little in that kind of community sense might jog some of that to where maybe I'd want to do something, but it didn't. But what it did actually was make me feel a little sad because I remember that site being such a strong art community for a long time. And now there's not as much on there. I mean, they did add a thing where it's similar to Patreon or whatever, to where people can subscribe to your stuff. And I've seen there are some of the artists and photographers that have put all their stuff behind a paywall, which I understand, but it's also a little disappointing, you know. But I'm not against anyone making money off their art. It's just disappointing that it feels... I hate when people buy awesome art for personal collection, and that's what this ends up feeling like to me. It's like, oh, it doesn't feel like as many people can access your cool art now, you know, but I understand why, you know, you're trying to make a few dollars on what you're doing. I totally, like I said, I don't hate the idea, but it also, on the other hand, it's like, oh, I can't follow this person anymore because I can't afford to be subscribing to every artist I like, or I'd be, you know, more broke than I am. So, but you know, anyway, but I was just like I said, I was just jumping around looking for different stuff about, breaking through not just the fear of the blank canvas, but the concept of, like, for me, a lot of it comes down to part of the reason that, and this is something we've talked a little about in therapy, was part of the reason I have trouble starting something is my issues with perfectionism. If I don't feel I can hit perfect, I don't want to even try. And they actually address that in the procrastination article as well. And I actually found there's a couple books written on the topic of essentially how perfectionism can kind of paralyze you and stuff. So I added those to my book list to maybe get my hands on at some point and read through. So, you know, I feel like as an inspiration, it may not have been a successful venture right now, but as a finding tools that may lead to inspiration or beginning something, it may be a good fact-finding mission to start the path a little bit. So I still felt pretty positive about what I found. And it didn't feel like I was just reading more on a topic I've already read a million things about. It actually felt fresh to me about procrastination, even though I have read quite a bit on it, because I'm always looking to see if someone's, you just never know when that one tip from somebody might be that, kind of moment.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I still haven't quite hit that point. But I'm still trying. Still trying to find my way through some of that. But yeah. And other than that, I think that's been basically it. I haven't really done much of anything else. So other than just, normal things. I almost got ran over by somebody running yesterday. I came out of a restaurant and there's a exercise place at the end of the building. So as I'm stepping out of the building, just, sauntering out as you do, this person just comes flying by and nearly trucks me. And he wasn't a big guy, but I also wasn't bracing it for impact. So had we collided, it probably would have been a nightmare for both of us because I'm big and he's got speed. Speed times mass equals uh-oh. If my math is correct. So luckily, I saw him just in enough time to step backwards. Because I don't think he didn't expect me to be there. And I was like, this is a really dangerous area to be running in because there's like 4 businesses between the two. So as you're running, literally anyone could fling a door open right in front of you. So
Maybe that's why he does it. It's an obstacle course.
I guess, right? Yeah, maybe that's what it is. You just run through the door or something. I don't know. I think it's like a CrossFit place, so maybe it's part of the training. I don't know.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow.
What do you mean he knocked you down? Get back out there. No, it was weird because you don't expect someone to be running, right as you're walking out of, especially a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you were near a gym, but I didn't realize that there was a workout place in there. Now, obviously, I'll head on a swivel coming out of there, but yeah. So, and it was a guy, as we sat there waiting for our food, we saw, there was like five women that ran back and forth through there too. So it must be like the end of the workout because right afterwards I saw the people walking out to their cars. So it's like, that must be like the last thing, maybe some cool down stretching or something. And then you're done for the day. But, yeah, so that gave me a little life there. A little jolt of like, whoo,
like, ooh, I'm awake now.
Yeah, like, oh, good thing I didn't have my pizza in my hand. That could have led to a problem.
Right?
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, what's going on in my life?
Nothing.
No, it's things are pretty good. I don't think I've mentioned it before now, but I feel comfortable enough to mention it to everybody. I am getting a divorce, so we are amicable and things are going fine in that arena. But through all this, and I'm attending my meetings and doing all that stuff and talking with people and my therapist and my psychiatrist and everything. And I don't think I've been really in touch with reality much the last few weeks. And something happened, actually a few months, and I could probably be honest about that. So something happened that really kind of brought me home, which was I was telling somebody about what I'm going through. And when I mentioned my gambling and my addiction, they recoiled.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
And it hit me because it was involuntary. I mean, they weren't trying to be rude.
Sure, yeah.
They literally recoiled.
I'm picturing someone moving back, clutching their pearls, like,
yeah. And it was one of those moments. It like those aha moments. It like sunk in that this is big, and I was living in my little world, my bubble that I had created still.
Yeah. And
I didn't realize that I was still living in my bubble. And that popped my bubble. And all of a sudden, I started seeing me from the outside world. And I started to come to a lot of realizations. I'm trying to not beat myself up because that's not the point. The point is not to chastise myself, beat myself up, or punish myself in any way, shape, or form. It's to be better and to encourage and grow myself and get better in the healthy way. So it's really caused me to kind of look at things a little differently than I had been. And something that else that I'm working on is, what do I want? And it's a really difficult question for me because I've always put everyone else's needs and wants and desires first.
Yeah.
It's just that's who I've always been. And I always thought that was the kind thing to do. That was the nice thing to do. Yeah, well, it's definitely not the healthiest thing to do because as I'm reading Codependent No More, I'm finding out that it's actually quite selfish and it is quite damaging to myself and to do these things. And the key is, as we've mentioned so many times on this podcast, is balance. It's finding that balance between allowing yourself to have likes and dislikes and opinions and allowing yourself to be the true you, the honest you, and caring what people think to a point and taking people's opinions in and their thoughts in to a point, but more valuing both sides, valuing your opinions as much as you value someone else's opinions. It's sometimes even more if the certain circumstances or the situation dictates. So I've been trying to go into every single decision I've made, from what are we having to dinner to the bigger things in life. And I try to ask myself every time, what do I want? What am I hungry for dinner? Not whatever you think, whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I'll do what you need. No.
Yeah, unless you're like me to where you literally don't care.
Yeah, unless you literally don't care.
Yeah, because I very much am that way most of the time. When I'm like, I don't know, does anything sound good to you? It's not because I'm indecisive everywhere. It's because nothing really sounds good to me most of the time. Otherwise, we're going to have pizza every night.
Exactly. And sometimes, gosh darn it, I want Chinese.
Yeah.
And I will never say that because maybe they don't want Chinese. Maybe they want something else. And if I tell them I want Chinese, they're going to end up with Chinese because I said I want Chinese, and that's not fair to them. Forget all that junk. None of that matters.
Right.
If I want Chinese, I have Chinese. If they don't want Chinese, we stop at 2 places.
Well, that's just ridiculous.
No, the world will not end if someone compromises for me. I do not always have to be the one compromising.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't always need to be the one compromising and them not know I'm compromising.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? Is if you were like, hey, they're like, hey, let's get Greek for dinner. And you're like, how about Chinese? And, then if you go, you know what, Greek would be okay. They visually or can see you compromising there or shifting.
Yeah.
If you just go, okay, immediately they just, oh, that sounds good to them. They don't ever know you compromised in anything. Not that you're keeping score, but it's like you said, it's like, but in your head, a lot of times you probably inadvertently can keep score on stuff like that. Like I'm always the one compromising, some people get, resentful for it. That was the word I was trying to think of, to where like, well, I'm always doing for you and you never do for me. It's like, I didn't realize you were ever compromising. So, but you've got this scoreboard apparently. Like, I didn't realize there was a scoreboard.
Ever been part of a fight where you haven't said a word and that fight happens in someone else's head?
Yeah.
You just walk in and all of a sudden they're incredibly ticked at you and you have no idea why. It's because they had both sides of the fight inside their
already
head.
in their mind.
Right.
Yeah, in their mind. They've already had the fight.
So
and
many of
you've
those
lost.
fights have taken place in my head.
Yeah.
So many.
And it's like, and you've completely lost. You have no clue why, but you've lost.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is, it's codependency rearing its ugly head. And if you want to learn more about it, please check out our former episode on codependency, because it's a really good episode.
The more you know, like sound right here.
Ding, ding, ding. The more you know. Yep. So, yeah, I'm doing a lot of work around all that stuff. Well, so as I'm doing all of this, like, thinking and overthinking and underthinking and accepting and fighting and all this turmoil and all this craziness happening up in my head, it turns out that my psychiatrist is no longer covered by my insurance.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I either have to change my insurance, which is possible now that I'm getting a divorce, but I can't do it until I get the divorce, because of, I have to have a life-changing event for me to get on my work insurance versus my husband's insurance and blah, 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 blah.
That sucks.
So still trying to work through all of that and make sure that my meds are kept up to date, because I don't technically need to see my psychiatrist. I just need to make sure that my meds are up to date, because my therapist is my talk person. Right. My psychiatrist is more my meds person.
Yeah, like for me, honestly, most of what happens through the program I'm with is the psychiatrist through it actually recommends medicine, and then my primary care doctor usually is the one that actually writes the scripts.
Gotcha.
So and I don't technically have to talk to the psychiatrist, but they're the expert. My primary care prefers to default to the expert and go, okay, he says, or they say this. Okay, cool. I'll write that out. Like I don't have any objections. Boom. So
I have another month of my meds, and then I have to figure it out. So I'm going to be figuring that out fairly soon.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure that, everything gets taken care of. Well, all this is going on. Work. So there is a position at work that I've been doing a good portion of for the last year that touches on accounting and touches on logistics, which my background's in logistics. So they decided that they're going to take that away from my desk, and they're going to create a whole team with a person as the leader of the team of people that are going to be doing the work that I've been doing. They wanted me for this role. They were going to try to fast track the whole job to give it to me. It would have been a leadership role. Well, one of the powers that be that got involved decided that they wanted to make it a manager role versus a supervisory role, which would be a band jump for me.
Which is not something you can easily step into.
Correct. Yeah. It's something that, because the way the corporate world works, for those who are unaware, that every job is placed in a band, and there's 1 through 7 bands, and depending upon the company, 7's the highest, 1's the highest, adult, It all works the same though. So all your jobs are in these different bands. Well, the band I'm at, this would be like 2 bands up. So I would literally be leaping over a whole band of jobs.
Wow. Yeah. And with no experience, it's hard to justify that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my argument is it's hard to justify that this job should be a management job because I've been doing it for the last year.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. So this comes up. I'm going through all of this, and there have been no promises made, but a lot of hopes rising, shall we say. Yeah. I knew, though, from experience that this was going to happen. It just inevitably, I knew that the writing was on the wall for something like this.
I'll tell you what you should do is go to the library and start reading all the management books you can find. Then when you talk with them, you'll be using the correct verbiage.
Lingo.
And they'll be like, oh, maybe she knows more than we think.
Well, so I originally wasn't even going to apply for it.
Yeah.
And then I stopped myself. I'm like, why the heck not? If I was from the outside coming in with the same amount of knowledge that I have now, bands don't matter.
It's true. You wouldn't know the band.
I'm an outside employee.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would have no clue where my job level was before.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, why not? So I threw my hat in the ring on that one. Then, for me the middle band that I'd be jumping is called supervisor. The jobs, anyways, would be considered supervisory jobs. There's a supervisory job that opened up in accounting. So I'm like, well, for me to get to where I want to go, which is manager, I need to get supervisory experience. I've been touching on accounting. I know all the people that are interviewing, the leadership and that's interviewing for this position. They know me. They know my work. They're very happy with my work. Why the heck not? So I threw my hat in the ring for that one. I have an interview tomorrow for that one.
Wow.
Okay.
Now, yeah.
I like that for multiple reasons, because one, if one doesn't come through, you could potentially still have moved up, which means down the road you still might be able to move toward that goal. Again, that's one of those things they talk about in life. Like, you know, if you're not where you want to be in your job right now, it's like, what can you do to move your feet that way? Even if it's baby steps, one little step, whatever it is, always try to move toward your goal. Even if it takes you 10 years, at least you'll feel like, hey, I'm putting my head the right way versus just standing here and expecting the world to come to you. You know?
Exactly. The whole zigzag thing.
Yeah.
So I'm zigging to zag that. So it's kind of, and then here's another layer. So there's a third layer to all this craziness.
Jeez, what is this, an onion?
Saying.
An ogre? Yeah.
So basically, the job that I'm interviewing for tomorrow is probably a job that I will not get because they kind of already have an internal candidate that they've been seeking out for this particular job.
Okay.
If the job person that they want takes the job that I'm interviewing for, I already have the interview done for the job that she will be leaving, which is also a supervisory job, but it is a lesser level of supervisory job.
Okay.
So I am interviewing for a job that hasn't even been posted yet, that may not exist, but could at some other point.
All right. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so much fun.
Yeah.
So, and the whole goal behind it is, I finally have that answer to that question that they always ask was, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Yeah. I got it answered.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to stay in the supervisory role for 3 more years, and then I'm going to start looking for the next step, which would be a manager role in this department, and blah, blah, blah. I actually have a plan, which I've never had a plan before my next, what's my next step versus the next step type of thing.
Yeah.
Never had that before. Now I have that.
Well, for the longest time,
cool.
there was never really anything there. You know,
yeah,
you
no
really,
support,
you
no
really
nothing,
couldn't see down the road because you were just in that quagmire of whatever department you were in most of the time. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's been kind of a whole wacky thing, and it's so funny because those of you who've listened for a long time, and I know Brian and Hannah both can understand this. My manager keeps telling me, "Don't overthink it." She's like, "You're overthinking. You're overthinking," and like so many times over. And then somebody that I'm friends with, that I've been hanging out with a lot, keeps telling me, "Don't overthink it. You're overthinking things." And it cracks me up every single time because I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Because to me, I'm thinking it just enough because I'm trying to figure it all out and keep it all straight. So that's something else that I need to overthink is what's overthinking.
If only we had done an episode on overthinking. Oh, wait. Yeah. But we when we talked about overthinking, do you remember that, Jen? Like how it actually, we talked about how it's like, what's overthinking for me isn't or for you may not be overthinking to me. It's what I have to do. And also they don't know this necessarily, but you were told for years that your attention to detail was your biggest flaw. Well,
Yes.
how do you fix not paying attention to details?
Yes.
You overthink because you're going to think of every little thing to make sure you didn't miss a detail. So, they don't know that stuff, of course, but it's hard to turn that. It's like, it's so common for us to go, oh, you don't pay enough attention. Go, oh, well, I'm going to pay all the attention.
Yeah.
And now they're like, okay, that's too much, and like, okay. So,
me doing extremes?
Yeah.
No.
But dialing it back can be very difficult for anybody.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's just going to be, it's fascinating. It's wonderful. The best part about it is that I'm happy where I'm at. So if nothing changes, I'm still happy where I'm at. So,
Yeah.
Yes, it would be nice to be able to move forward at this point, but it's not mandatory. Like,
Yeah.
I've been in situations where I've been miserable and I
Yes.
needed something else. And you, the audience, I know have been with me through all of that, including Brian and Henno, of course. So to be in a position like I am, it's just, I'm very, very grateful for. And I'm handling things fairly well, I'm thinking. Granted, it's tough to tell because inside Bubble, even though Bubble has been popped, it's still somewhat there. I might get a half bubble. How about that? But it's one of those things that it's so crazy because I'm kind of mad. I'm kind of cool, with the whole thing, not freaking out. Just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
This is going to happen.
Well, I
okay.
think, like, right now, too, like you said, you've got a lot of juggling to do right now. So if this doesn't come through, it's not necessarily the worst thing, because timing may not be bad. You may not be the right size at the moment for that kind of thing. But, that doesn't mean that you aren't or whatever, and I'm not in any way, downing any of it. It's, and you've been good about that with, especially with this company, about sometimes when you haven't gotten the advancement, whatever, and then you're like, you know what, that really, probably wasn't something I wanted. I'm just kind of jumping to jump sometimes because you were trained to do that because it was so hard for you to get out of bad departments before that literally you were like, you're taking a jump, you're leaping onto any platform that comes by in hopes of getting out versus the right platforms,
And by no means has it happened really in this company that I'm with now.
Right.
The company I'm with now is incredibly supportive.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, the time right now that we're in the job market is beyond unique. I don't think anyone could have possibly estimated this type of situation we're having with, lack of candidates or lack of right people fitting the roles that are open. And I mean, it's just, it's wacky right now out there in the whole job market. There's been 8 people who've left my department in the last week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I work for a great company.
Yeah.
So, it's just, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
It's just, there's a million and one reasons. Each one of them had a different reason, of course, it was just kind of crazy, everything that's going on. But, and I have people recruiting me and seeking me out and trying to get me to leave, which has never happened in my entire life, which is kind of crazy too.
Yeah.
So it's just, there's just so much. It's almost like I have crazy overload that now I'm just kind of immune to the whole crazy because there's just so much of it going on in my life right now that I'm kind of like, okay, sure, why not?
Yeah. Well,
I'll just sit here and let you all crazy around me. It's okay.
Yeah.
Buckle my seatbelt. I'll just sit tight.
a leaf on the water, just go wherever the current takes you.
Exactly. So that kind of brings you guys a little bit up to speed on what's going on in my world. So I don't know. It's been about an hour. Do we want to continue on and do a topic, or do we want to just leave it here?
I think we should, because, especially with us, putting weeks in between our episodes, I feel like we
need to give them more context.
Yeah, it's like and Henno, you said you had one, right?
I do, and
Okay.
it's actually something that's more for people to look into themselves.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it was something that was introduced to me, and it actually has to do with people that have chronic disease. But I find that it also applies to mental illness and just in general anything where you're struggling to get through the day. And we've talked about a lot of times about that idea, like, there's so much in the bank account, and once it's all withdrawn, that's it. You need to, whether it's your spiritual level, your patience level, we've talked about it with addiction, as far as like your willpower level. Like you've gone all day long, and then at night you're just like, it's all depleted. You've done all the, and then how do you regenerate it? And this, I'd never heard of this before, and evidently it's a big thing with people that struggle with chronic disease, is called spoon theory. And I'm just going to read this, and then there's so many links to dive further into this, but it starts with most people don't think twice about the energy it takes to shower, get dressed, and drive to work. Most people can go to the grocery store in the morning and make dinner in the evening. Most people can make plans and keep them. When you have chronic disease, you're not like most people. Multiple sclerosis, autoimmune forms of arthritis, and many other conditions can cause extreme fatigue. On a bad day, you may not have the strength to even brush your teeth. In a blog titled The Spoon Theory, Christine Miserandino describes how she showed her friend what it's like to have lupus. While sitting at a diner, Miserandino handed her friend 12 spoons. These represented units of energy. She then asked her friend to describe the typical activities of a day. Miserandino took away a spoon for every single task: showering, getting dressed with painful joints, standing on a train. Skipping lunch would cost a spoon too. When the spoons were gone, it meant there was barely energy to do anything else. This idea of quantifying energy as spoons, and the idea that people with chronic disease only get a handful of spoons each day, hit home with readers far and wide. Spoon theory is now part of the lingo of autoimmune disease. Legions of people call themselves spoonies, connect on social media as #spoonies, use spoon theory to explain their chronic disease limitations, and plan their days around the number of spoons they have when they wake up. And I'm just going to leave it at that. We'll put some links in the show notes to a couple of articles about this. But this resonated with me, and especially you, Brian, when you've described kind of, what a day can be like. And one of the things that there's another article that's a little more extensive that'll be as a link, and it talked about like when you've done all you can and there's nothing left. Yeah. And that it's not, and you end up with this fear and this pressure of what are other people going to think of me, the social norms that I might be blowing off because I'm just unable to do this because there's no more spoons left. Right. And especially like with Jim's funeral and all of that. Yeah. It's like you were using up your spoons for your mom. Yeah. And then when it came time, there were no spoons left. And, how can this be explained? And I thought this was a great way of, it's a way to explain to other people, but I think it's also a way for, we all have those days where we ourselves can just go, there's no more spoons left.
Yeah. And I think also, like, everyone can understand that, like, let's say we'll use the word average because, we can here, even though we don't like to, but let's say the average day, most people wake up with 10 spoons, right? Like, I can totally get this because there's a lot of days where I wake up with 6 or 4 or whatever. It's similar to, like, picture if you forget to charge your phone at night, right? You get up the next day and you're like, oh man, I only got 20% charge. Well, you have to charge your phone or it's going to not be able to function anymore. And it's the same with us, that at a certain point we hit where we're like, I need to recharge whatever means that is for a person. We all have our own different ways. But the other thing on this that I assume it probably gets into is not every activity is only 1 spoon. Sometimes certain things can be 3 spoons. And if you only have 5 that day, now you're down to 2. And, picture if you start up a game on your phone and it really saps the battery to where you play for a short time and you're like, oh man, I'm at 20% already. Again, you're at that point to where it needs a recharge before long. And, so yeah, I can totally get into this. I can't believe I haven't heard of this before, because I've literally explained this in a way to people using the phone battery, and it's the same idea, Oh boy, I think things froze up. I'm just going to keep talking though. But the phone battery, and the percentages on that are the same kind of thing, is that, if we all had.
You froze up a bit.
Yeah, I figured so. But.
Oh, there you are. You're coming back.
Yeah. But if we had, like our phone battery, if you start at 100%, yeah, you can run a lot of apps that day probably, and you're going to be fine until you can get home and, recharge / rest it. But with ourselves, it's the same idea. If you start the day off at 100%, great. But for a lot of us that have various things, you sap your energy quicker. Because, like, for me, like a good example, right? If I'm going to go out to do something with somebody, I'm going to spend, staying in the lingo, I'm going to spend spoons getting myself hyped to go. So I'm going to spend probably 2 doing that. Then 1 or 2 doing the activity, so it's like I could already be down 4 of my spoons for the day, so it's like it can, whereas maybe other people would only be down 1 or 2 at that point, so it wouldn't be that big a deal. But the anxiety that I deal with through it also can then take an additional one that I hadn't planned to spend on the activity, because maybe I get out and I've got more anxiety than I thought. That's exhausting. Or, maybe I really put myself out there or something. So yeah, that's a great thing to bring up. I know I can't wait to read in on this a little bit and actually maybe share this with some people that have had trouble understanding what I'm going through. So I appreciate you, sharing that with us.
So I think what also would be worse would be like if one day something was 1 spoon and then the next day all of a sudden it felt like it was going to be 3.
Right. And that happens. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think really any of us we've all had days like that where it's like, oh, going to work today is 1 spoon, but you have some big something and you're like, oh, today is going to be a 3 or 4 spoon kind of work day,
Well, and imagine the anxiety now that builds up when you're like, okay, I was planning on burning 3 spoons by the time I got to work, and I'm down 6.
Exactly.
And now you're thinking about how am I going to make it through the rest of the day?
And with anxiety, you could burn spoons from days before that on that day because you're worried about that day. So you're burning anxiety along the way.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's why I said this math in this, the worst part for it is that it's not set. It can fluctuate day to day, like you were just saying. Maybe today that activity is a 1. Well, maybe tomorrow it feels more like a 3 because, especially if you start down a few that day. If you start, all of us can experience that, right? Like you, Henno, if you wake up and you're just tired, it's hard to get ramped up for your work day, right? We all have had that at some point. Now picture that more frequently, it's hard for a lot of people. And I'm going from the depression angle. Thank goodness. I mean, mine can't affect me physically, but thank goodness I don't have, a lupus or something like that. They would also not only weigh on you physically, but mentally at the same point. Depression can, but, for me, it's usually more mental than physical, but there is definitely fatigue involved, and anxiety really can fatigue you. So it's, yeah. So.
Well, my mom's struggling right now. She had back surgery, and that's something else that has been, a joy to be able to take care of her.
Yeah.
But also, a spoon zapper.
Sure.
Because it takes a lot of effort. But I'm definitely sharing this with her, like 100%, because she's struggling so much with the aspect of that she wants to do the things that she used to do, but she can't right now because she's got these limitations.
Sure.
And it's a real struggle for her to understand because, some days it's getting up and just taking a shower.
Yeah.
and that's it. And
That's
she's
it.
zapped.
Yep.
So I love this idea of, and I could even see taking it in the physical manner of it, of just getting plastic spoons and carrying them with you. And as the day goes, you take your spoons away.
Yeah.
Just so that they can, that you can get a physical, visual of your spoons dissipating now, and in making those better decisions. It's really understanding. It's like, okay, if I wake up and I have 6 spoons today,
Oh, you're leading
I'm
right
gonna,
into it.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure that I use them wisely.
It's also could be a barometer for if you suddenly start feeling yourself not reacting the right way or losing patience or something like that. If you had your little plastic, your little rack and it's no longer there, you're like, oh, this is why I'm losing patience. This is why I may have just snapped just now.
Yeah.
I'm low and I need to now respect that and do what I can to recharge.
Oh man, does somebody made an app for this? Because I feel like somebody should have made an app for this by now.
Actually, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
It's Meal-a-Deal, except with emotional and mental and physical pain.
Well, that's why it's like just the spoon counting, just that alone, I think,
Because for those who are not familiar with Meal-a-Deal, Meal-a-Deal happened back in the 90s.
Deal-a-Meal. You got
Deal-a-Meal,
it backwards.
sorry. Deal-a-Meal was like I believe it was 80s or 90s. And it was sponsored by Richard Simmons, or he was.
Oh, that's right.
He was involved in it.
Here we go. And there's an app called Spoony Day. There you
go.
That is literally what the app does, is it helps you manage your spoons.
Okay, perfect. There you go. But the whole idea of the Deal-a-Meal was that you get this folder with food items, or with food cards in it.
Yeah.
And as you would eat through the day, you'd move the cards from one side to the other to show that you've fulfilled your obligation of that food group. Good, bad, or ugly, sweets and meats and fruits, and everybody was listed. And you would just, okay, I got my 4 fruits. All right, I moved my 4 fruits, my 1 fruit over each time I eat a fruit or vegetable or whatever it happened to be. So it's very similar concept to that, to the whole spoony thing, which is so amazing. I absolutely cannot wait to dive into this further. This was such a great topic, Henno.
Well, one of the things I was going to bring up, and Jen took us right to the door of it and then stopped, which was there's an episode of Seinfeld that people, if you're a Seinfeld fan, you will remember as in being sponge-worthy. And
yes,
I'm very much thinking of this like to where you're starting to think of activities going, is this spoon-worthy? Is this something I want to spend a spoon on? In my head, the first one I went to was like, are you spoon-worthy? But that's not where I meant it. I meant it more as is this spoon-worthy? Like, because again, you go, I only have, according to this app, the way the standard is 12, apparently. That's the average. So if 12 is the average, you go, I only have 12. Do I want to spend 1 on this? And I actually think that's a really good way of looking at things sometimes. And I actually think it really fits. Now, the are you spoon-worthy part of this that I was thinking, I think kind of fits what you're doing with your life, Jen. Because you're going, I'm going to spend my energy on these things. And it's like, is this something I want to spend my spoon on? Not, because of someone else, but like, is this something I want to spend, or is this person something I want to spend my spoon on? So I really think you can, not just with this other side, I really think this is something, I think across the board, this is a really good idea just for personal happiness and energy expulsion, because so much of us, how many people do you know they're, I'm so busy, I'm tired all the time, and blah, blah, and it's like, yeah, because you're spending 15 to 20 spoons a day. You only have 12, that's really probably what a lot of it is. Yeah. So,
oh my gosh. My head's going to so many places right now.
I like
and it's really, really awesome to think. I can off the top of my head think of at least like 3 or 4 people that's getting a spam with this link.
I actually was thinking that too. I do have a few people, and not in an overbearing way, but just like hey,
like you need to look at this.
Yeah, and I really do. For anyone who's listening to this, if there's someone in your life that's having trouble understanding, this may be the gateway for some people, because it is really physically something you could show them. Go buy a box of plastic spoons if you have to, and literally sit down with them, or whatever. You can use Post-it notes. I think the spoon is symbolic in there, but take and put physical somethings down and be like, hey, when I do this, it takes this, and really show a person, like, maybe that'll help them understand a little more what it's really like, so yeah.
Very, very cool. Thank you, Hannah, for bringing that to us.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, he paid his keep for another week.
We'll keep him.
Really quick, before we get into the last bit here, there's one more thing I want to talk about. Is we mentioned the war in Ukraine and whatnot, and I've seen a lot of people not know of places where they can throw money to help causes and different stuff. And I know there's a lot of things out there to help refugees and different things along those lines. One that I've donated to personally, and I've actually been aware of this one for a long time, and it's called the World Central Kitchen, and it's run by Chef Jose Andres, who's a renowned, very well-respected chef. And if you've ever watched Top Chef, you've seen him before, because he's been on a bunch of episodes as a judge. He was on the All-Star episodes. Anyway, his foundation, they can be found on Twitter at WC Kitchen, or they can be found on the internet at, I just had it, where'd it go? WCK.org. And what they do is they feed, right now they're set up in Poland and around Poland basically, and they are feeding refugees as they come in, and they're feeding them whatever, they cook up. And I've read that there's quite a few other, like, very well-known chefs that are, like, heading over there and throwing their time into helping and all this stuff too, to make sure people have a hot meal, and whatnot. And they don't just work here. They've been doing this work for years. And like I said, as far as I know, they're very well vetted and seemingly trustworthy. So, of course, you can do some research yourself on that too if you want to. But I just wanted to bring that up because, like I said, I've known about him for years, because I believe he played for them when he was on Top Chef All-Stars, and that's where I heard of it. And I paid attention, and I've donated to them various times because, there's always somebody in the world that needs food, and they're just trying to feed people, and they're not like, like they even said on the one interview I saw on one of the news programs, it's like right now he said they've been feeding people a lot of soup because it goes a long way, obviously, but also it's warm and it's cold over there, so it warms you up. Also, a lot of people, soup is a comfort food. So for many people, so it gives them some comfort when their whole world is literally being blown up around them. So, and now I'll step off my soapbox. Oh wait, no, I won't.
Doing for others is doing something for yourself too. Yeah. So do not forget that doing for others can be self-care. So just keep that in mind. I know I've said it on the show before, and I'll say it again. Excuse the religious tone to it, but the difference between heaven and hell, they looks the same, giant, long table with a ton of food in the middle and people on either side of the table. The people in hell are starving. The people in heaven are incredibly fulfilled. The reason is they all have the same fork, but the fork is too big for them that they could feed each other.
There we go. Okay, I was going to say the audio was cutting out. I'm like, of course it's cutting out right now.
Frozen.
Yeah.
And replace heaven and hell with whichever you believe, you feel. It doesn't even matter. It's just the key point behind it is sometimes to get fulfilled and to feed ourselves, we have to feed somebody else first. And that's how we can get what we need from things too. So there's a really cool dude out there that started this campaign. He has a 3D printer. So Geeks Unite, love you all. He had a 3D printer. He decided he was going to 3D print parts for tourniquets and send them over so that they could put tourniquets together. He used exactly what he happened to have on hand and something that he loved to do to help someone else and use his passion to propel forward a positive message and a positive thing. So it doesn't have to be much. Just use your passion, use what you're good at, and help others, and you will be fulfilled in your own way. So it will come back. Guarantee you it'll come back to you some way or another. So I guess that's a really awesome message to start our wrap up with. So thank you, Brian, for bringing that.
Yeah.
And so we've covered a lot of information on this podcast, a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of juggling, a lot of, maybe some little bit sad in some ways. But regardless, covered a ton of stuff. We'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us. Tell us what you think. Comments, constructive criticism, please. But criticisms are welcome too. We'd love to hear from you in every way, shape, or form. And how, may you ask, can you do this? Well, let me tell you. You can reach us at the Crazy Life Podcast, or the Crazy Life Podcast at outlook.com is our email. crazylifepodcast.weebly.com is our email, is our website. If you would like to reach me, you can reach me through our Facebook page, which Brian will tell you about in just a moment. Just to entitle it Jen, and they'll make sure I get it, or shoot me an email. Welcome to shoot me an email. Still kind of taking a whole little social media break-ish. So you might see me on social media once in a while, popping in and out and stuff like that. But those would be the easiest ways to get in touch with me if you'd like to talk to me. Now, Hanno, how can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at IdaHenno. You can find me on Facebook, Facebook Messenger, Instagram. Just look up Henno Heiter. It's Heitur. And if you'd like, check out my other podcast, Moving the Needle Podcast, which is at MTN Pod on Twitter. And pretty much, I think it's MTN, was it Dash Pod or something?
Yeah, I don't
know
remember
what our website is, but anyhow. There's another Moving the Needle podcast. We're not a sports show. Our last podcast was about the David Lynch movie Lost Highway, and coming up with our friend Carmelita, we did Mystery Men versus Kick-Ass, and that should be up next week.
Sad Panda Me was not on the episode.
I know, you're supposed to be there.
That's going to be a good one, too.
Yeah.
Those are some pretty solid movies.
That's why I was so excited when Henno asked me about it, because I love both of those movies. And I was like, oh, I haven't watched Mystery Men in years. It'd be a perfect reason to go back and watch it again. And
yes.
Wasn't meant to be, I guess.
And Brian, how can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Stunami. You can find my other podcast at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work. And we just usually talk about kind of whatever we notice in pop culture or just life in general. Like this last week, we talked about, what did we talk about? Oh, I was looking at the wrong one. We were talking about, the slap at the Oscars. We talked about Taylor Hawkins. Me watching WWE Evil, which is a show about like people who've been great heels in pro wrestling. The show Our Flag Means Death. Nicolas Cage playing Dracula. Just that kind of stuff. So if any of that sounds fun to you, please give us a listen. Again, show's not safe for work, so be careful of that. You can find this show on Twitter at The Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. I lost my place. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. We're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows over there. And then, as always, if you need help, please reach out. Please talk to somebody about what's going on. You're not alone. You don't have to go through these things alone. There are people out there who care about you and will try their best to help you. And of course, if you know of someone going through, something tough, please reach out to them and make sure they're doing okay. I've had a couple examples of that over the last few weeks where I've reached out to some people because, you know, some people that I've known have gone through some unimaginable loss in their life. So, you know, but it doesn't even have to be something that catastrophic. You know, just if you know someone's just struggling or having a rough go, just reach out and see how they're doing. And of course, one thing else I want to mention, I don't mention it a lot on here at times. Like I always reference stuff being in the show notes, but in our show notes, there's always info for like the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. I've got 211 in there, which handles a lot of different things. Like if you're in a position of need for food or help with like utilities and different stuff like that, 201.org can help with that. You know, I have a link to CODA, which is Codependence Anonymous. I want to clarify that because if you type in CODA into Google right now, you're only going to basically come up with the movie that just won Best Picture. And then,
Not
you know,
the math term?
no, like right now, the hot thing is that movie. So it's, yeah, it's easily the number one thing that comes up. So anyway, but there's some links in there also if you're looking for something. And then of course, the last thing I usually mention, which is, you know, please be kind to one another, be kind to people that you see, because we just never know what kind of struggles everyone's having, and you don't know how many spoons they got left that day. You know, so
You might get hit with one. You never know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's all they need is one. Yeah. But you know, like I said, just
by
try
the Blue Raja.
Yeah.
There you go.
Are you stealing my silverware again? Yeah. So please, you know, less Mr. Furious out there. So
Yes.
But yeah, just try to be nice to one another. And again, you know, the stuff we talked about, if you can help somebody out there, please do so. And you know, just go be good people.
And in the late but great words of Mr. Robin Williams, people don't fake depression, they fake being okay. So make sure you check on your people, make sure you're nice to people, and the world will treat you right. So with that, go out there and have the absolute best week that you possibly have, and actually go a step further and have an absolute positive best weeks, since we are now on every 2 weeks. But definitely do the best you can out there, and we'll be here. So you need us, you know how to reach us. Don't forget though, wiggle those toes.